this is Coach Bob McCurry from Baseball by the Yard. Today's tip involves practicing hitting the low pitch. Now, one of the problems that coaches and players run into is that it becomes very difficult to even practice a low pitch, because how do you actually do it? Especially when you're by yourself. If you have someone throwing batting practice, they might be able to aim lower. If someone is giving you soft toss, they can give you some low pitches that way. But much of what hitters have to do if they want to become better hitters is to practice by themselves. So how do you do that based on the equipment that's out there? Now here's the dilemma. Here is a batting tee that is produced by a company, I think it's called a Shoot or Shut tee. Now if you look at me standing next to this tee, you can see an obvious problem here. Now I'm 6'2", and the lowest setting of this tee puts the baseball at my thigh, which is fine if I am just practicing a normal everyday swing for a hitter. That's not a problem. But if I want to practice the low pitch, the pitch at my knees or even a little lower, this tee isn't going to cut it. Now the problem with that is that as you get older, the pitchers are going to get better, which means more and more pitches are going to be down in the strike zone, particularly around the knees, even under the knees. Umpires do call the low strike sometimes under the knees. So it becomes to the hitter's advantage to practice those pitches, because that's the pitches that they're going to see. But the problem is, if I'm using this tee alone, that doesn't help me. Now this is a traditional tee where the ball's set up in the middle of a home plate base there. But even this tee on the lowest setting is still about where my knee is. And there are some times where I'm going to have to swing at a pitch that is slightly below my knees, especially if the umpire that day is calling that pitch. Now again, as I said, I'm 6'2", so this ball here is pretty much right at my knees. But if I'm a player who's 5'5", 5'4", this ball here on the lowest setting is probably going to be thigh high to me, or if I'm a shorter player in that area. So this tee, although better at working the low pitch, generally doesn't accomplish what I want to accomplish either. So what I did over here is I took the concept of this tee here, and I took a hacksaw and I cut down a couple portions of the tee and made it so that it is a low pitch batting tee. Now the advantage of using this is that I am practicing pitches that I am going to have to learn how to hit if I want to be a good hitter. So now when I set the ball up on here, you can see the ball is slightly below my knees, which could still be called a strike by an umpire, and I can work on that pitch by myself just like I would on a normal tee, and work on the proper mechanics of hitting a low pitch. Now my last point is, when you are working on a low pitch, it's not a bad idea to exaggerate it. So for example, if the lowest strike you're going to see is slightly below the knees, set the ball up so that it is maybe shin level. Because if you can practice hitting a ball that's shin level, when you get a pitch just below the knees in a game, that pitch isn't going to seem so tough anymore, because you have practiced a pitch that is even lower. Now of course, I'm not trying to promote that guy swing at the pitch at their shins. You got to have better plate discipline with that. But there are times where you're going to have to swing at those low pitches based on what the pitcher is doing and what the umpire is doing, and maybe even with the two strikes either to protect the plate. The point is, if players are getting used to swinging at low pitches, a little bit lower than they would normally see, then they get confidence in swinging in that low pitch. And now the pitch at that knees doesn't seem so tough if I've been practicing hitting a pitch that's even a little lower than that. So that's your tip for the day. Working on low pitches. Find the tee, design it so that you can put the ball lower and exaggerate it. Put it below those knees. Give yourself some confidence in those low pitches, and you'll be a better hitter.